All right, let's bring you this discussion now. The deadline to replace the SASSA Gold Card has been extended, as you know now, till the end of March, at least the 20th of March, ensuring that beneficiaries have adequate time to transition to the Postbank Black Card. Now, this Postbank card, or rather Postbank, has confirmed that these new cards will have enhanced security features and will meet the latest banking standards. The decision follows a wave of complaints from beneficiaries and activists about the transition challenges, if you like, that they face, including long queues to collection points, lengthy and frequent system outages as well. Let's get a sense of how ready Postbank is. Speak now to Nikki Mbengashe, who's the Chief Executive Officer at the Postbank South Africa, and joins us now via our video link. Nikki, it's lovely to see you. Thanks very much indeed for making time to speak to us about this all-important transition. Paseka Letsatsi was on the channel earlier today saying that there are 2.5 million people who are yet to heed the call, essentially, to swap up these gold cards for the Postbank Black ones. How prepared do you feel to be able to take on these additional beneficiaries by the 20th of March?
Morning, Ayanda, and morning to your listeners, and thank you for the opportunity. So the project started 6 months ago. That's actually when we started calling beneficiaries to come and replace their cards. So we had planned properly to allow for the 3 million customers, beneficiaries that we have, to come through to change their cards within that 6 months. The challenge that we've had is that beneficiaries did not show up during that time, I think the first 3 months, and we can understand because there was literally no sense of urgency, I suppose, on their side, because the yellow card was working. And as a result, now we're seeing that the load, since we introduced the deadline, that the load is towards the end, the last 3 months. And indeed, we have queues, so we're working around the clock now to see if we can increase capacity, if we can have roving teams, if we can introduce an even faster way of actually registering for what we call a cardless solution, so that enables beneficiaries, whether they have the black card or they're on the cardless solution, they can access their grants in April. Thanks, Ayanda.
Right, and we'll speak a bit more about that, especially considering the post office's challenges over the past couple of years. But a big part of why this transition, of course, needed to take place was because of the security concerns, we're told, associated with the gold card. I wonder if you're able to give us a bit more details about how those have been fixed with this new black alternative.
Well, the essence of the reason we're changing cards is because all bank cards expire more than anything. It's as same as your card and mine have an expiry date. So the Postbank card, the yellow SASSA Gold Card currently expired about 2 years back. We did ask for an extension because we wanted to prepare ourselves for this project, but also to ensure that every work that we had to do in terms of systems behind to ensure that by the time we introduce a card, it is absolutely 100% compliant, which we have achieved. So the current card is what we call it EMV compliant, which means really the standards that you have to meet when you belong to one of other Visa, MasterCard or EuroPay, and therefore we've met those standards, and our card has been verified. There's also systematic work that you have to do in order to protect the information on the card, but also mainly as again, as we update, even when you update the software on your phone, one of the things that we do when every bank actually does when they produce a new card is that the chip is actually an updated chip as well, so that it's more compatible if there's an upgrade in ATMs, in POS machines, that the actual card is going to interact with. And those are the features that we also had to put in. I think proudly as well from our side, the fact that we now giving our beneficiaries what we believe is a decent looking card, because I think the yellow gold card was quite outdated. It was actually now chipping away. You could not read some of the information. So, but the look and feel for us was quite an important thing as well for our beneficiaries to show dignity towards them.
All right, so safe to say then that we're likely to be here again a couple of years from now. I mean, if the issue here was just the fact that we need to update the cards as a standard practice, then eventually even this black card will have to be replaced at some stage.
Absolutely. Like I said, every either depends on the bank, either 5 years, a renewal, or 8 years. I think the difference with this one and the future, how we planned, is that it's quite unfortunate that on this one we had to replace everyone at the same time. I mean, you and I, if we bank with the same bank, we don't have to replace at the same time. So now we've planned better in the future that we actually we stagger the replacement. We don't have to replace all our customers all at the same time, because we don't want to find ourselves at this position again.
Right, because that was going to be my next question. Hopefully there's a better way to do this. I mean, part of the reason why we're seeing those snaking queues is the bottleneck effect that happens when everybody rushes to these institutions at the same time. But yeah, as you mentioned, hopefully it'll be a whole lot more staggered moving forward. Now, for people who aren't necessarily able to get this right by the 20th of March for whatever reason, we're told they're able to collect their funds at a post office. Now, we know the issues around the post office are well documented. Many of them have closed down. If they're still open, they're operating with way fewer staff. Is that not creating potentially a different problem for this institution?
Look, this is not the plan that we had from our side. That's why we gave ourselves 6 months to actually do the project. And again, unfortunately, we didn't see, I think outside of the payment days, which is normally 3 days in a month, our beneficiaries just did not show up. And therefore, we could not replace the cards at the rate that we had planned. So that's the first thing. We then had to come up with the contingencies of how then to ensure that even if you don't have the Black Card by the 20th of March, you can still access your grant, because that's important to us. And therefore, we had to default back to the post office, and they still have over 500, I think 520 branches nationwide. So we are now sitting with them to ensure that we plan this properly, so that come April, that capacity can be absorbed. But even more, we also trying to reduce people who eventually have to use the post office. That's why we talk about the cardless solution that our beneficiaries can register for, which we now going to start as we try and as well manage the queues. We're going to help people register for the cardless solution. What that does is that at least with the cardless solution, it works like you would do your e-wallet. You just go to any retailer, all you need is your ID, and then through your cell phone, then we can actually verify you and authenticate you and give you a PIN, which then can release your funds at that retailer. So that's the process we want to push the most, and then the post office becomes the last resort. This is exactly to your point. That's why Postbank stopped paying beneficiaries grants at the post office in March last year, because to your point, the experience for the beneficiary was not most optimal. But we had to unfortunately make provision for that again, so that at least people can get access to their money. And hopefully we only have to use it for 3 months as we extend time for people to still go get their card, even post at the end of March.
Yeah, and hopefully people do come forward, especially given the fact that we've seen just how bad the situation can get, for lack of a better term, especially because in some instances, the cash would simply run out. I mean, we'd have many times where we've had reporters on the ground speaking to people who've been queues at the post office and have been told to come back sometimes for a second, third time, because the institution had simply no cash on hand. I mean, is the plan here to at least try and make sure that even the cash on hand is boosted, keeping in mind what we've just spoken about, that I think you called it a cash-led option with the e-wallet system?
The cardless solution.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's exactly why for us, we said we're stopping to use the channel in March last year, because we could see that it's not necessarily serving the beneficiary well. But we like I said, we're working very well with the post office to plan ahead, to see, and also we're projecting the volumes that we're going to see. So we're tracking every day how many people are coming to get their card, how many people will be registering for the cardless, and therefore the volumes per branch. In terms of the funds, we as Postbank, we actually provide the funds to the post office. I think the only unfortunate thing with the funds, sometimes it does happen that because you have to send a CIT company your cash in transit, sometimes they get into an accident and therefore the funds are delayed, or you send funds and then beneficiaries tend to then want to use the same branch, because you can only project sometimes using history in terms of how many beneficiaries are using that branch, and therefore the turnout is more than what you have planned, and therefore that's when you then experience the issues that you're talking about. Again, that's exactly for us why we had stopped this using this channel, and that's why we actually still encouraging beneficiaries that even post the 20th, we are still opening more sites to try and accommodate the numbers that we're looking at now. You can still go get your card. Even after you get your grant in April, you can still go get your card. So you can. It is up to the beneficiary to an extent to say, look, I didn't manage to get it by the 20th. Then I'll use the post office perhaps in April. But straight after that, go get your card, and then you can use the post office only for 1 month to avoid exactly the same issues that you're raising.
Fair enough. Just while I have you on, Nikki, I'm wondering if there are commercial spin-offs to this migration taking place and it being run by the Postbank. I'm only asking this because we know, of course, that there are plans to essentially have the Postbank operating like any other commercial bank, which has raised all manner of interesting discussions. So, yeah, it's a matter of interest. Is this part of the plan of ensuring that the Postbank can become a player in the commercial banking system through this migration?
Look, it's part of our strategy, absolutely, to ensure that we become even more compliant as a bank, to ensure that we take better care of our customers, to ensure that we retain the beneficiaries that we have, because beneficiaries have a choice, right? Beneficiaries can bank with anyone, but they still at least loyal to us, which we absolutely appreciate. And therefore, how do we improve that experience for them so that they stay with us and enjoy staying with us? And part and parcel of it, I think, to your point, the argument of whether a Postbank has something to serve. I think we're seeing it with the queues currently and the difficulties that we're also facing to go to the most remote areas where there's sometimes no network, there's absolutely no other bank except us. I think that argument fails when people say, is there a need for another bank? We're seeing it currently now with people who are struggling to come and get an access banking facilities. So it's absolutely is aligned. But I do need to mention that the beneficiaries won't pay anything to get the card. The card is free. We're providing this service currently for them for free in terms of exchanging the card. So no commercial benefit in that sense, but for long-term strategy and for our mandate to ensure that we increase financial inclusion, absolutely.
Yeah. Look, I don't mean to sound like a cynic, but I'm just wondering, if the past few weeks are anything to go by, what happens if we aren't able to get everybody to migrate on time? Look, I doubt that would happen because many people, I think, are typically very responsive. But I'm sure you're also playing with a few scenarios and permutations around what happens if these 2.5 million people don't actually all, comply with the switch up.
Yeah, that's exactly why we had to default. Unfortunately, the post office was that process people are familiar with. They're familiar with the post office that they used to use. Hopefully, it's still there in most cases. And that process is easy because all you have to do, you get verified in the post office. So all you have to do is show up with your ID. So that process is easy. But again, for us, that's the last resort kind of process. We're really encouraging people that they should rather register for the cardless solution, because then that is more convenient and there's more sites or more spaces or channels that you can use to actually withdraw your money, because you can use any other retailer that we normally are partnered with, even now during this process.
All right, Nikki Mbengashe, we appreciate your time and your patience. I think it's all very important information and hopefully it lands at the right places in time. For now, Nikki, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Nikki Mbengashe, once again, the CEO of the Postbank.